Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, I am 20 years old and have been forbidden by a medical specialist to do squats, deadlifts, overhead press, and any exercise that puts axial loading and pressure on my spine because I have flat spine syndrome. What exercises can I do instead because I have developed good legs with deadlifts and squats and want to keep progressing but I don't want to get seriously injured? And also your overall thoughts and advice on this. By the way, thanks for all the content. It is great, and I learned a lot about proper nutrition training and how to not get tricked by the supplement industry. Keep it up, Jason. Man, you're in a tough situation. Part of what I'm going to advise, maybe consult a physical therapist who specializes in weightlifters. And the reason I say that is you might be able to find advice from them to help you squat and deadlift. But in the meantime, we're going to go with what your doctor said. We don't want to contradict what your doctor's telling you, particularly when it comes to things like the spine. It's just not worth taking those sort of chances. And I hate that because I think axial loading exercises should be the bulk of everyone's training. Failing that, put heavy focus on belted lifts. And when I mean belted lifts, weighted dips, weighted chin-ups, and try some belt squats. If you don't know what belt squats are, go look them up. In fact, Nico Illa, who I shout out all the time, one of my bros, he does belt squats also. So he's got some good stuff on there. If you go check his little channel out, you can kind of see what he does with them. Leg presses, things like that. That's where you're going to have to put your efforts. And as far as your delts go, you might have to actually isolate your delts some. A lot of band face pulls, though, will help bridge the gap there because you can't do an overhead press. Maybe some side laterals. But yeah, put heavy efforts into those things because there's no problem with that there. I mean, get really strong on dips, your bench press, weighted chin-ups, weighted pull-ups, all of that stuff, belt squats, and you'll have to use a leg press, and I think it'll be fine. Also, maybe the glute ham raise to help bring your hamstrings up. It'll all balance out in the end. I mean, do the best you can in the situation you're in, but I think all those exercises are probably going to be your bread and butter. All right, next question. Hey Jason, 3 weeks ago I walked into the gym and deadlifted 170 kilos conventional along with a 5x5 work set. 3 weeks later and I can just barely get 150 kilograms off the floor for one rep. This is becoming extremely frustrating to me as I am not progressing. Is this a recovery problem? Thanks. Yeah, it's a recovery problem and a work capacity problem. Bro, deadlifts, you have to respect the deadlift. And if you want to do any sort of appreciable volume on the deadlift, combined with intensity like that, you're going to have to build to that. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, if 170 was basically a PR for you, that's close to your max. If you did that, and then you did a 5x5, you got to remember 5x5 is a lot of volume on the deadlift. And then you did a 5x5 after that, it's probably going to take you 2 full weeks to recover from that. If you are not using drugs and you're completely natty, that sort of workload like that, it's going to take you up to 2 weeks to recover from that. That's just reality. So if you did other deadlifting in between that 3 weeks, yeah, you're under recovering from it. You need to gradually build your workload capacity, all that on the deadlift. And you got to watch those grinders. You need to be very careful when you start seeing slow reps on a heavy deadlift. That is absurdly fatiguing to your recovery. And like I said before, you're going to have to build work capacity on an exercise like this. You need to treat it with a little more respect. You need to go more gradual. And for God's sake, don't do a 5x5 on the same day you pull a fairly heavy deadlift. Don't do it unless you have built your work capacity to allow that. Now, the fact that you're at 170 kilo deadlift tells me you're not a super strong deadlifter yet. You don't have that much time with the exercise building work capacity. So it might be time to readjust what you're doing. If you want to do volume on deadlifts, I like volume triples, but they need to be somewhere in the range of 75% or less of your max, even if you do that. If you're going to start doing volume, and don't start mixing heavy singles in on the same day with volume deadlifts. It's just going to bury you. And I think you're learning that the hard way. You've got to build up your work capacity slowly on this exercise. And a lot of people do a lot of volume on the deadlift, but it's taken them years to build to that. So just keep that in mind. All right, next question. Hey coach, I've been progressing really well on chin-ups recently, but have recently stalled and been getting pain in my left elbow and random throbbing in my bicep sometimes, or if I straighten my arm too fast, it feels tight either side of my elbow joint. Is this a sign I need a deload? If so, how does one even deload weighted chins? By the way, chins are the only bicep exercise in my routine. Thanks. Well, how do you deload chins? You do just body weight for less. Like if you're doing, I don't know, 50 pounds for sets of 5s on your weighted, you can do 3 reps with just your body weight. That's a deload. It's time for you to adjust the way you're gripping. This is a problem I ran into, again, trying to get strong on my weighted chins. My weighted chin-ups are getting pretty respectable at this point because I do well over 300 pounds total, combining my body weight with the weight on the thing every day. All right, it's a 6-day-a-week thing for me. I had to adjust my grip. In other words, you don't put yourself in a position to where you can wrist curl. Like I rest the base of my hand, just like, when you bench press, how you have your wrist cocked back to a certain extent and you're resting just above the joint. I grip the bar in a similar way for the chin up, but reversed, so that my hands are curled back and that I can't curl them over the top. And what you're going to find, you might have to be careful of how far you try to extend yourself up over the bar at the top, because that can contribute to causing you to wrist curl. And if you start wrist curling, you're going to notice that point around the elbow and that point where the bicep tendon insert along with, because that's where a lot of your forearm muscles insert into that same protrusion on the bone. That's what's going to start hurting, and then it's going to make your whole elbow hurt. So something you need to look at there, you need to adjust the way that you're gripping it completely so that you cannot wrist curl. And if you've got to limit the last inch or two at the top to avoid that, then do so, because you're going to get injured if you keep that area too inflamed. All right, next question. Hi Jason, I train 3 times a week full body, but I only have time to do 2 sets per exercise, which is usually max effort. I do squats, bench, rows, standing press, dips, and chin-ups. I try progress on these lifts when I can. Is this enough volume to gain size as long as there's progression? Brother, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. If you only have time to do 2 sets and you're doing that many exercises, you need to trim your exercises down. It looks to me like you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exercises, right? 6 exercises. Why don't you cut down to 4 so that you can get 3 sets in? I mean, your other option is to come in and do high volume triples on just 1 exercise. But you could also come in and do 3 work sets on 4 different exercises. Don't spend a lot of time ramping up. A lot of people waste way too much time on warm-ups. I waste way too much time on warm-ups. Not telling you not to warm up, but I see people just waste so much time on them. You should be ready to hit your first work set in less than 10 minutes. I can tell you right now, guys, a lot of times when I come in to do my Bulgarian, I'm sometimes hitting my peak max or training minimum within 10 minutes of starting the warm-up. All right, it just doesn't take you that long. I take more time between exercises than I do ramping. And that's for me to come in and hit heavy singles. So don't spend a lot of time warming up, just the amount that you need, the minimum amount you need to get everything moving, to get your technique down. Do 4 exercises instead of 6. And if that becomes too time consuming because you're trying to go really heavy, cut down to 3 exercises. But I think for now, if you're doing full body, 4 big movements out of those 6 that you listed every time you're at the gym, I think that will be more than adequate. And then you'll get everything that you need on each exercise. And you can basically run a workout A and B, or you can randomly rotate through the 6 that you have. Pretty straightforward. All right, next question. Hello, Jason. If someone wants to look like a basketball player, for example, Lebron James or Dwayne Wade, or like sprinters, how should one approach training and nutrition? Not an untrained individual. Thanks. People will give silly answers to stuff like this, and they'll be like, if you want to look like a basketball player, play basketball. Now, if you don't have their bone structure and muscle insertions and their genetics, you're never going to look like them. Perfect example. I'm 5'9". I'm 5'9" with short thighs. I have short legs and a long torso. There is no way that I could look like LeBron James. All right, I do not have his bone structure. So here's my point to you. If you want to look like somebody, you need to pick your parents very, very, very carefully and get their bone structure. If you don't have another person's exact frame, you're not going to look like them. Now, if you just mean their general size and muscle mass and proportions, you go study what you think that physique should look like and train yourself proportionate to it. And when you get to that muscle size, for any of the muscles that you're trying to build, stop progressing on them. In other words, when your biceps get to the size you want, stop adding weight to your weighted chin-ups. Stop adding reps. But the thing is that you need to understand, it's really silly to stand there and go, well, I want to look specifically like this person. And I think what you really mean is kind of that athletic look. Well, you get the athletic look by building just a proportionate physique, doing big exercises. Don't inject anything directly into any of your muscles like bodybuilders and physique guys do to create fake muscle to swell things to weird proportions. Because athletes tend to be proportionate related to performance. And diet down to whatever body fat they're at. And that's how you'll have that athletic look that you're looking for. But if you think that you're going to look like a specific individual by training or eating a certain way, that is not how this works. It doesn't work that way. You're just going to have to accept that. We do have different frames and structures and shapes, and no amount of training, diet, drugs, anything else will change your inherent structure. All you can do is make it bigger or smaller, fatter or leaner. That's it. That's what you can do. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.